Picture this, a timeless star like Barbra Streisand, known for being classy and suddenly turning the spotlight, Tonto Eric Clapton. Today, she finally revealed sides of him that fans never expected to hear. What happened was not just a story of one musician's mistakes, but a mess of fights, scandals, and personal tragedies that shook the very foundation of Clapton's legend. It might seem weird that Streisand and Clapton would clash, but their worlds crossed paths in more ways than anyone thought. What looked like two legends living in separate worlds soon turned out to be a crash of pride and hurt egos. Their fight was not a gentle artistic disagreement. It was a storm fueled by arrogance, jealousy, and the need to be on top. Streisand revealed how Clapton dismissed her influence with sharp comments, ruined collaborations with cold attitude, and held bitter opinions about artists he secretly envied but could never admit to respecting. At the heart of this conflict burned not only ego but also messy love fights, whispered brails, and the toxic energy of shared friends in the entertainment world. In public, Clapton wore the mask of the guitar hero. In private, he turned his insecure into weapons. Streisand painted him not as a calm genius, at peace with his legacy, but as a restless defensive agui, an artist whose talent came hand in hand with cruelty, whose confidence hid a knowing weakness. The difference was huge. A man capable of famousing music, yet equally capable of tearing down those who threatened his place in the spotlight. The most shocking news came when Clapton's connection with Harry Nilsson was laid out in the open. Nilsson, the wild singer-songwriter, whose crazy lifestyle fascinated many, became tangled up in Clapton's world. At first, it looked like friendship, two famous musicians. Finding friendship in late-night sessions and shared fame, but underneath was rival ribbling like a hidden fire. Streisand revealed that behind the scenes, their relationship was filled with betrayal, drunken fights, and toxic competition. Picture nights that started with laughter and music but ended in insults, flipped tables, and broken trust. Bothman looked for approval through excess. Nilsson through reckless humor. And while partying, Clapton through showing off and getting drunk, their friendship spiraled into a battlefield of jealousy and reckless adventures, a toxic dance between admiration and destruction. Fans who pictured them as buddies now saw a picture of self-destruction. The difference was huge. Two men capable of genius harmonies together, yet morphed and locked in chaos, each pulling theater deeper into shadows they could know. Think of the tangled webs of love in the rock world, and Clapton always seemed to be at the center, having to say, okay, if we shoot 2D on, it's gray out. But I want lights on water. I want the sun to beshening his obsession with Patty Boyd. George Harrison's beautiful muse exploded into one of the most famous love triangles in rock history. On one side stood Harrison, a Beatle whose spiritual charmed millions. On the other, Clapton, restless, fiery, and consumed by desire. The chase led not to joy, but to bitterness, broken marriages, and dunless rumors. Yet, this was only the beginning. Clapton's romantic messes did not end with Boyd. They multiplied, spreading chaos through circles, offerings, and colleagues. Affairs with models, quick romances with singers, and reckless nights of seduction left scars on lovers and broke bonds with fellow musicians. One moment he played the role of the desperate poet pouring raw emotion into his songs. The next he became the destroyer, careless with their hearts placed in his hands. Streisand Rebellions put these passions in a harsh light. They showed a man who was sought once capable of legendary devotion and shocking betrayal, a romantic idol and a heartbreaker in equal measure. This contrast defined his reputation. An artist loved for love songs that melted souls, yet privately feared for leaving ruin in the wake of his desires. Beyond personal romances, Clapton was constantly at war with fellow musicians, and the stage often became his battlefield. He clashed badly with bandmates in Cream, whose explosive breakup was a storm of jealousy and mistrust that spilled into every rehearsal and performance. Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker both accused him of arrogance, while Clapton, boiling with pride, viewed them less as friends and more as competitors clawing for control. Their concerts, once celebrated for skill, turned into hostile battles of volume and ego. Later, tensions built with other icons, fiery arguments with Jimi Hendrix, that mixed adoration with envy and fights with members of the Rolling Stones, that left parties divided and friendships wherever he went, admiration mixed with hostility. One night he wasted golden genius, embraced by peers. The next, he was the outcast, accused of being difficult, cold, or condescending. Streisand's exposure reminded fans that Clapton's brilliance was never separated from fighting, that his talent always carried the shadow of conflict and feasting of rivalry. Clapton's personal demands were no secret, but hearing them through Streisand's lens made them sting anew. His battle with heroin in the 1970s nearly destroyed him, leaving him skinny, hollow-eyed, and unabloved performing at times. Friends feared he would not survive another year. Yet he held onto the guitar as both lifeline and weapon against his own despair. When heroin loosened its grip, alcohol rushed in to take its place. Years of alcoholibus spilled into public view, embarrassing him before crowds who once worshipped him. Picture him stumbling on stage, slurring words between songs. Collapsing under the bright lights, Fattens crowned him king of the guitar, fans whispered. Critics sharpened their knives, and fellow musicians kept their distance from the spectacle. These struggles did not remain private. They tore apart friendships, saboted performances, and fueled public scandals that filled tabloids with dirty headlines. Clapton's artistry hung by a thread, the brilliance of his soloist clashing with the chaos of his reality. The same hands that played legendary riffs often shook under the chains of substances, fingers barely steady in autoform chords. Each performance became a gamble. Would the genius shine through? Or would the haze of drink and drugs drown him once again? Streisand's exposure made clear that behind every note off-body lurked a man fighting desperately against destruction. A man whose greatest rival was not an antagonist, but his own relentless craving for oblivion. Behind the fame lay heartbreak, and Clapton's story was pierced with wounds that never fully healed. The most devastating blow came in March 1991, when his 4-year-old son, Connor tragically fell from a New York high-rise window. That loss haunted Clapton for decades, shaping songs like Tears in Heaven. But pain went far beyond music. It allowed him out, leaving scars that no word or applause could cover. Yet Connor's death was not the only crack in his family life. Years bare, Clapton's chaotic relationships with women had left him cut off from children he fathered during his storm years of addiction. He struggled to balance fame with responsibility. After running away into touring schedules and substance abuse instead of building, lovers accused him of neglect. And his children grew up distant, separated from him by both geography and emotional barriers. Streisand's exposure forced fans to look at these hidden. The rock god who mesmerized crowds with his guitar was afternoonable to nurture the people closest to him. His romances with models musicians collapsed under the weight of cheating and pride. His marriage to Pattie Boyd, already stained by his obsession, and her history with George Harrison, ended in bitterness and accusations of cruelty. Later, marriages brought brief hope, but often spiraled into the same cycles of detachment. Family gatherings, when they happened, were clouded with tension. Clapton's relentless pursuit of escape through music, women, or drink left him isolated from those who most wanted his presence. Even in moments of making up, he carried the reputation of being distant and difficult. A man who could channel raw emotion into a guitar solo. But no tinto conversation at the dinner table. Streisand reminded the world that Clapton's private life was as turbulent as his public one. His inability to maintain stable relationships combined with grief, regret, and guilt turned his personal world into a battlefield of loneliness. Fans who idolized him as a glitter god were forced to confront the fragile, flawed man behind the legend. A man whose greatest enemy was not a rival musician, but his own inability to heal wounds within his family. Now, with Streisand's dramatic exposure, Clapton's story feels heavier than ever. He remains one of the greatest guitarists to walk the earth, but his legacy is tangled in feuds, scandals, and broken bonds. His triumphs cannot be risked, yet his failures cannot be hidden. Streisand's words did more than reveal old wounds. They forced Eric. Clapton's life is no longer just about music. It is about a man at war with himself, his peers, and his. For fans, the myth of Eric Clapton will never look the same again. The legacy he leaves behind is as complex as man himself. Picture a career decorated with Grammys, sold-out arenas, and timeless songs, yet shadowed by controversies that never faded. His name is carved into history as a master oft guitar. But it is equally carvidento gossip columns and whispered stories of betrayal. Critics argue that his genius was inseparable from his self-destruction, that the very passion that fueled his music also tore apart his relationships and his peace of mind. As fans revisit his albums, the soaring solos now carry echoes of loneliness, and each chord feels heavier with knowledge of what lay behind it. Addiction, arrogance, love affairs, gone wrong, friendships burned beyond repair. Clapton's story, once told as a straightforward rise of a guitar hero, is now seen as a maze of brilliance and darkness. Streisand's revelation did not erase his artistry, but it framed it within a tragic story that will follow him for generations. In the end, his legacy is not simply a catalog of music. It is a cautionary tale about the ghost of genius, the fragility of fame, and the destructive pull of pride. For every song that changed lives, there is a story of someone he hurt or pushed, and that duality, glory and grief, triumph and turmoil, will define how Eric Clapton is remembered forever.